Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to the Puck and Stuff podcast. I am your host, B-Dog. Beside me, as always, T-Dog.
The Panthers have won the Stanley Cup.
Yes! Thank the Lord!
Utah, holy moly. Poor Arizona fans. They did need Lindholm. I'm glad I'm not paying that contract.
This core, it hasn't worked. You haven't gone anywhere.
Boom, we're back. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Puck and Stuff podcast, where we talk about puck and other stuff. Today, I'm joined by my buddy and co-host, partner in crime. We plead the fifth. B-Dog, how you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing good over here, T-Dog. I'm doing pretty good.
Before you say anything, I just want to say to poor Tua.
Another
Poor
concussion. Another concussion.
All right, I don't need that no more. Fuck them, baby. Let's go. Almost 2024-2025 season. I kind of cut you off there. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good on this side. And this is where we actually introduce our new intro and our new logo. I hope you guys like it. That's going to be the logo in the intro going into the next season. We definitely have one for Flames Talk as well. So you guys will see that for the next Flames Talk going into the new season. So hope you guys like it. But obviously, we're here for a reason. And boys, it is time for standing predictions.
I just can't believe that it's already, a month away till the next season. Feels like just yesterday. Feels like just last year we did this. But hey, we're pretty hyped. If you're hyped too, leave a like down in the comments there. Right, yeah, below, right? Is that how I say it? I'm pulling my words today. It's been a long day, I'm not going to lie. Anyways, I digress. Let's get right into it. So I think I want to start with the Eastern Conference and then kind of go from there. I'm thinking Atlantic.
You're going with the hardest division in hockey first?
I just want to say, this was tough because what we did here is we picked, right, 1 to 8 for each division, and then we said, okay, who's making playoffs, who's hitting a wild card spot. Yeah, we might get some flack for some of these, but hey, that's okay. That's okay because free speech or something like that.
That's the predictions. That's the fun of it. And
exactly,
then at the end of the season, we compare of how bad or how good we did in those predictions, you know? That's the fun of it. So yeah. I'm excited. I'm super excited.
I find there's always like one or two teams we're pretty spot on with, and then there's like one team each division we're like, they're going to make a splash. And then they didn't make a splash. So let's see what we can do here. So, B-Dog, I'm going to let you take the reins here on the Atlantic Division. Give me your number 8 to all the way to number 1, and let's see how wrong we are.
Okay. You know what's kind of funny? I love, but I also hate that you had to choose the Atlantic, the hardest division in hockey right now, because I did this last because I thought this would be the hardest one for me to kind of, predict. We'll start off with number 8, the Ottawa Senators. Number 7, the Montreal Canadiens. Number 6, the Buffalo Sabres. Number 5, the Red Wings, making a wild card spot. I have number 4, the Tampa Bay Lightning, also making a wild card spot. Number 3, the Florida Panthers. 2, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And number 1, I got the Boston Bruins on top of the Atlantic.
Ooh. Okay. So here's mine. Number 8, the Canadiens. Number 7, the Ottawa Senators. Number 6, the Buffalo Sabres. Number 5, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'll get into this. Number 4, Detroit, wild card spot. Boston, 3rd. Of course, they clinch in. Toronto, 2nd. And Florida, 1st. I feel like a Stanley Cup hangover may not be recited this year. I feel like last year we were pretty similar on all of our divisions. This one is a little different.
We got some spots flipped, for sure. Yeah. I can say that for sure. Some spots are flipped.
Let me explain my number 8 here. So I think an addition of Patrick Laine is great for their forward core. Still young, and I think a lack in depth on the D is going to have an immense effect on their team and, playing consistent. And, I think Sam Montembeault is a great goalie. Dude, Montembeault, he could hit a number 3 spot on that Four Nations faceoff. He has a lot of potential. But I think he is going to hit his peak when the Canadiens hit their peak, when all the players kind of grow into themselves. And I think it's just another learning process, but hey, at least Habs hockey is fun to watch. There's some teams who are down in the dumps that it's just you can't watch a full game. Habs games you can watch. So I'm excited to watch them for that reason, but I think they are number 8. And you said Ottawa's your number 8, correct?
Yeah, I said Ottawa being my number 8 because, like, I really don't see anything good. I mean, the addition of Ullmark is really kind of what this is based off of. So if he has an amazing season, I wouldn't be surprised if they aren't 8th in the Atlantic. But at the same time, we haven't seen enough from Ottawa to really be confident enough to put them higher than 7, in my opinion. So I felt like 8 was comfortable. And then I put Montreal 7th because they finished 8th in the division last year. And I don't know. Montreal, like, has really... The Patrick Laine is a great addition, and their top 6 looks so good. And I think it realistically is going to be held in the hands of goaltending in Montreal. So, like, realistically, these bottom 4 teams could really make a jump. But again, not enough proven in general by the team to be like, hey, you're deserving to go higher. So that's kind of why I put those there.
That's fair. Ottawa, for me, number 7. I just don't see any of these other teams being worse than them. Buffalo maybe could swap around there. Montreal too. But right, you were mentioning Linus Ullmark. I think he'll carry some games, but I think he's just no. I don't know if he'll be traded at the deadline for a rental, but I think it's a 1-season thing for him. I don't. It's just hard for me to see Ottawa taking steps. I kept thinking they would, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then we go to Buffalo here. Similar thing where I just think that they don't have the capacity to beat these other 5 teams on my board here. Buffalo, I think, have a higher ceiling with the youth, and I think in due time it's going to happen. But I feel like I've been saying this with Ottawa, Detroit, and Buffalo. Keeps nothing happens. Buffalo, they need to have a strong start. I think they need a good October, November, because it seems like they played decent in the latter half of the season, or it's like a part of the season kind of screws them over. So I think if they have a good start, then they can maybe take some momentum from there. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's fair. I think 6 is like I think a lot of people got to realize in the Atlantic with Detroit, Buffalo, Montreal, and Ottawa, they're really young, hungry teams that look really competitive, but they haven't proven it yet. So with these 4 teams, it's really hard to kind of predict where they will land, because you could think of one team jumping up to 4th or 3rd, but then there's so many other ways you can go with it. And it's entertaining. It is 100% entertaining. I love it. But I don't see Buffalo making a jump yet. They haven't given me a reason to put them higher. But at the same time, like you said, if they have a really good start, they could really make a big jump at the end of the season. So, yeah, but I mean, if a lot of shit has to go right in Buffalo for them to be able to go higher than 6, in my opinion. It really does. But I got to ask you a question. What? Tampa 5th?
Yeah,
What?
that's one of those decisions where I was like, I don't know, man. I might be wrong. I'll probably be wrong. This is my excuse for this, because they don't even make playoffs. Because when I was doing this, I was checking off who I think makes playoffs, and I think, oh, there's not enough room for Tampa. There's only 8 spots.
Yeah.
I wonder if the loss of your captain is going to affect them immensely.
No.
Gensel as an acquired winger, fantastic player. He's going to score some goals.
Yeah.
But I just feel there comes a point where eventually that empire has to fall, And so, I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of morale boost. If Stamkos is as good as a captain as you said he is, that could honestly have a big effect, right? Who takes a leadership role? They probably have leaders. Vasilevsky's probably one. Kucherov, Hedman.
Yeah.
Would think maybe some other old timers on there too, like Point or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I might. But so maybe when I was just mentioning Buffalo, it's a thing that happens where they have a rough start of the season. Maybe they pick it up, but by that time they couldn't. They couldn't make it. So I'm gonna just stick with it.
Okay,
that's what I'm gonna say.
No, that's sometimes with these predictions, you got to be bold. You got to be ballsy and put a team that could make playoffs down. No, I
Yeah.
understand. But at number
Yeah.
5, I put Detroit, and I do have them making a wild card spot. So I have 2 teams in the Atlantic making wild card spots. So that tells you what's going on with the Metro. So yeah, Detroit, honestly, I've been hyping up Detroit for a couple years now doing this podcast, and now I think it's the year you have to make playoffs, 100%. My biggest worry when I was doing this is, okay, your goaltending is Cam Talbot. And if we get a Cam Talbot that was LA Cam Talbot, there's a chance. There's a chance that he
Yeah.
could carry them the playoffs too. But especially in this scenario too, with Cam Talbot, if he starts to finally decline, then I'm scared. Then I'm like, okay, Detroit isn't making it. But yeah, I think Detroit is showing exactly the right steps into making playoffs. You saw that from last year. They got their whole fan base hyped, potentially having a playoff spot, and I think that momentum will turn into this season too. So I'm confident putting the Red Wings at 5th, making a wild card, and then I put Tampa 4th, and I think they make a wild card spot. The loss of Steven Stamkos could be a major impact to the team, like you were saying. So I understand why would you think that, but I mean the replacement is Jake Gensel. That's still pretty good, and you have all that pieces still there, and I mean, unless Vassy really goes down with an injury or again, or he plays all 82 games, that could decide the factor right there. I know I'm mentioning goalies a lot in this, kind of being the adding factor, but I really think, especially in Tampa's case, if you lose your star goalie like that, that matters. That really does, especially when I go back to Detroit too. If you lose a Cam Talbot that can't play that well anymore, you're kind of screwed. Let's be honest. So but I still think Tampa's too good to not make playoffs right now. I really do.
No, you have to mention goalies. Like, they're so important. I opened my eyes when you said that with the whole Vassy thing. I'm like, oh, don't jinx it there, bro. But we'll see.
Boys.
We'll see. Detroit 4th for me. Yeah, I think there's eventually it's time. You made a good point. I wasn't even thinking about that because Husso is. I don't think he's hitting training camp. I think he's going to be injured still. You resign your players, perfect. The steps that their young guys have made, pretty immense. We're getting to that point where I think Seider will eventually start getting into that Norris conversation. Things of that sort, right? I'm excited for this team, right? You know, it's young, it's skillful, there's some speed there too. I don't know, is their team better on paper than last year? That's up for you guys to decide. But I think they're a team that they get off on a hot start and they ride it all the way to a wild card. I think the wild cards will be close because if I'm going to say that Tampa doesn't make it, it's probably a few points between last wild card and the spot below it. I think it has
a point difference, like a point or two difference. I get
it has. It has to be. That's kind of my piece on it. But I guess here's our top 3. Mine was Boston again. What was yours?
Mine was Florida.
Florida. Okay, so Boston for me. I think if Marchand, your captain, is going to be out of training camp and might even miss a part of the start of the season, that could impact you a little bit. But it's Boston. You lost to Brusque as well. But you get Lindholm, Zadorov. So that's a lot. If you get a Zadorov that was around 2019 Zadorov or 2022, 2023 Zadorov, yeah, you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat for sure. You need those. Especially the fact that Zach and Coyle, took the roles of those top 2 center positions and did pretty darn well, I would say. Boston's got a good culture, and I think that's what kind of keeps them in this race. Is even if, they're losing players on paper, players buy into the system of whoever's on the coach, right? So I think that helps immensely.
No, 100%.
So that's me for 3. And I'll give it to you, and then we'll do 2.
Yeah, so for number 3, I actually did have Florida, and I think I'm kind of basing it realistically off of Stanley Cup hangover. It does affect some teams after winning a cup. I still think they make playoffs, but you also got to think that Bobrovsky is now hitting almost 40. And you got to see that kind of descent down, right? So maybe they rely on Spencer Knight a little bit more now as a goalie role. And maybe there's that struggle of oh, this is my first actual season in the NHL. I'm not just a backup. So maybe I'm thinking a little bit too much that way. But yeah, I think Stanley Cup hangover hits this team a little bit harder and drops them to third instead of being first in the division. We both had Toronto at 2. Okay, I want to hear your thoughts on Toronto being at 2.
I think you swap Matthews the captain. I think there's a bit of boost there. Craig Berube. I mean, St. Louis, this is, 5 years ago we're talking about now, going to be 6. Buy into the system.
Yeah.
That St. Louis team was no team that had a star player. Like, they had some great players. But Tarasenko was never, and even in his prime, was never Stamkos. You know what I mean? Like, somewhat comparable, but nothing that close. So that's exciting. So I think if you can have that and maybe have these players play for the team instead of for the money and hanging out with Justin Bieber, I think it's a little helpful. Man, Toronto's a weird team because it's like, man, they're there. You're there. It's like, I don't know. It's the cap situation really messes it up, of course.
Yeah, it's true. It really does.
But I think a coach bump might suffice them to a second spot.
No, that's 100% fair right there. And I had Toronto at 2. The more I kind of looked at their lineup right now, I realized Joseph Woll will be starting for them. And if he does perform like he did in the playoffs, I could see them making 2. I really could. And I really don't want to just keep basing this off of goalies. But we also know Toronto always has a really strong regular season. And underneath Berube, I still see them being second. I think he'll really line the boys up and get them into the mindset of, hey, you guys are great in the regular season, but you need to prove it in the playoffs. And I think they have the right coach to be able to do that. So if everything goes right with Toronto as it usually does in the regular season, I could just see them finishing second. And that technically would be a Toronto-Florida matchup in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, for me, at least. You're going back from round 1 Boston-Toronto.
Yeah, for me, it'd probably be a Florida-Detroit, most likely.
Ooh,
but
that would
Florida,
be kind of cool.
That'd be actually kind of sick. I think Red Wings fans are awesome, so it'd be good to see him again. And
me too.
I think
you get blow up the barn.
Yeah, getting a little Caesars Arena going with some M&M would be kind of crazy. So Florida for me, number 1. I feel like this is a team that's not going to have a hangover. I don't know why.
Wow, you're opposite of me. Okay.
Yeah, I just think Bobrovsky, and I'm maybe saying this because he's on my fantasy team, but Bobrovsky, I think he'll be fine for this season. Yeah, a little bit of diminishment of, probably. Oh, again, as well, too, like this team, it lacks a depth comparable to last season, but it's nothing that this team's still a juggernaut. They're going to smack teams around. Like, they still got, a prime Barkov and a prime Kachuk.
Yeah.
And all of that. And then, of course, great depth in that forward line with, like, Rodriguez. Gustav Forsling. What a pickup, man. Right? You can't want to cut with those guys, like, helping you on the back end like that. So I think you got a few guys on that defense like that. That's helping immensely. And I'm excited for Florida here. I do think they'll keep going. I don't know what that entails for playoffs, but I was gonna say they probably have a better chance of making the finals back than Edmonton. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
All right, I have Boston finishing on top of the Atlantic, and kind of based off of what I saw last season, I was kind of amazed to be able to see Boston make playoffs on the fact that they didn't really have a first-line center. And that kind of tells me a lot, especially when they add a guy like Elias Lindholm lining up with David Pastrnak now. And we've seen Elias Lindholm put over an 80-point season when he has good wingers playing with him as a centerman. And I think this will be proven again when he plays with Pastrnak. He's a playmaker. He'll set him up filthy almost every time. I wouldn't be surprised if David Pastrnak actually is the goal leader for this year. I would not be surprised. And then you got to think too, they did ask Zadorov. They are one of the biggest height-wise defensive teams in the NHL right now. Like, if you look at the heights of almost every player on that team right now, it's kind of nuts. And then you got Jeremy Swayman as your goaltender. That's great. And he performed very well in the playoffs. He had a good regular season. And now he's going to be known as the true starter for Boston. So I don't really see how it must be full collapse for them not to make playoffs. Or I really think they have the potential of being first in the division again.
Or if Swayman doesn't sign.
Ooh, he sits out a year? Oh, dude, no way.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
would be
man.
crazy.